I'm Gregg, Oldfield, CEO of Engage Digital Partners, and the presentation that you'll be reading through and listening to in the next 30 to 40 minutes covers the cybersecurity awareness and best practice guide from a company that doesn't traditionally work in financial services, but is a company that works predominantly in the digital space, mainly online mobile markets, but really builds communications and fan communities, and that's really what we do as a business. So hopefully how we approach this in terms of how we give key messaging, talking to fan communities, getting people involved in key issues and being part of a larger community and sharing their thoughts, their information, education, information and engagement are the areas that will come through this presentation today. So the key focus here is on engaging communities through digital first sustainable campaigns, and our real sort of mission really when we were working very closely with CREST was to address this whole area of cybersecurity and the awareness that's needed around it. So again, you can read here just in terms of the community, in terms of how you talk to a community, it has to be very authentic and an ongoing trusted dialogue, and that again sometimes comes from the constituents or the people that have high influence and credibility within a community. So that's a very important point there in terms of the influences that you choose, and that also will vary by the different territories that you're working in. So again, it has to be very localized when you execute it, and we'll cover a little bit more of that as we go through this presentation. But this is really to address those who have never had access to banking services, either for offline or online, and they're doing it for the first time, and really just making sure that they're aware of what the issues are, what needs to be addressed, and learning from what others have experienced in the community, and learning from that and making sure that they're fully protected, they have all the access and the information and know where to go, who to talk to, who they confide in, so that they can have confidence that they have their financial matters addressed and looked after and help them with their lives wherever they happen to be on the planet. And the key point here for us is the traditional media that people used to look at in the past in terms of traditional advertising, whether it's TV advertising or outdoor advertising. Those methods in terms of where the market is today, everything has definitely moved to sort of digital and social media. And some of the new platforms that people are seeing now in sort of 2022, 2023 are things like TikTok, and those are massively engaged, globally now, probably one of the biggest social platforms. It has a huge influence and sway with the younger generation. So again, these are the types of platforms that you need to make sure that you're engaging with to make sure that the right messages are given to the right people at the right time. So again, it is about the authenticity of the audiences, but you need to be talking to them on their platforms in their language to be relevant and be contextually relevant today for them to absorb that information and want to engage with it in the first place. So that's really just the headlines of what we're going to be looking through. We're going to take you through how we develop these campaigns, how we address different types of communities around the world. Doesn't matter really which sector it is. This approach is a pretty much sort of holistic view in terms of how you might go about it. The messaging can change depending on which organisation you are from, who you're talking to, in which addressable audience, the different demographics, and the different sort of ways that you want them to engage, either both from a one-to-many methodology, but also when they start communicating between each other. So these are the 5 steps that we always recommend, and really this is a tried and tested approach that we use across many different sectors, and everything is all about planning. So the first piece is always about the strategic planning process. We'll take you through the 5 steps that will do that, and this is all about data. So everything is data led to make sure that you are addressing all of the right audiences at the right time. Then you build an awareness campaign. That's all about messaging and being very clear and having clarity of what you're trying to say. It's very important in today's marketplace that you try and cut through, because there's so much online and digitally. You need to make sure your message is heard. So everything is down to timing and what you say. the timeline, how long you should run these campaigns for, the financial considerations that you should look at, and how you might need to localize those by market, even if you're looking at a global campaign. And then lastly, just sort of the different types of different digital services and businesses of companies like us that you would probably need to approach to bring an expert to the table to help you deliver what you need to do. So let's just go through these. Strategic planning process, first of all. These are the 5 steps that we've talked about in my previous slide. So again, data and insights. Everything must be led by data. You understand exactly what you're looking at, the regions, the target countries. Are you going to big key cities, tier 1 cities, tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities if you're looking at some of the big markets? Maybe it might be in India or it might be in Indonesia. These are very different than some of the Western or some of the American markets. Are you talking to a rural community? So again, but more difficult to get to those types of places around the world. But again, you need to understand where and whom and the environment that you're communicating, and contextually what is relevant for them culturally, language, versioning, etc. So all these things need to be taken into consideration. Which platforms you might use, and there are many platforms, but we'll give you some examples later. And as I mentioned, lastly is language, and that localizing it in local language makes a massive difference, because then it doesn't feel necessarily like a global campaign, even if you've started with that context. Having something in local language means that you're talking to them in their language at a local level, and it will be far more receptive to that than something that's coming in English when you're actually probably a foreign speaker in a different market. So use data and insights first of all. Secondly is looking at your audiences. Again, understanding who they are, the different clusters, the demographics, which influences are important to those groups. There are many creators now in the marketplace. Again, they have a lot more authenticity and are talking to these people on these digital platforms. Third step is about creating the right awareness and getting a proper creative and media plan. So again, understanding all the different elements from creative right way through to looking at how you might use not necessarily actors or ambassadors. You might use local people, who will be a lot more relevant to the people and the targets that you're trying to reach. Developing the right campaign mechanics. Is it a broadcast message, or do you want people to engage with something? Do you want them to take a call to action? You need to understand what those are. The tone of voice is really, really important. And then creating the right assets, and then the media plan. So that can be almost from a strategic point of view handed out to many different agencies, but they are all then executing to the same brief, to the same tone of voice. So it's consistency of message is the most important. And then the campaign execution can be done by one agency, or if you're doing it internationally in lots of different markets, you can brief smaller agencies to do the last delivery in a local market where they have probably a bit more expertise. But again, campaign execution, again, all of those areas that we've mentioned here, from looking at the platforms right the way through to collecting first-party data and managing the community afterwards. And it's no good just dropping a campaign in, you have to give it ongoing life as you go through the process. And then lastly, obviously, is reporting, making sure that, again, you don't just report at the end of a campaign, you're reporting as you go through the campaign, so you can make refinements, understand what your key performance indicators are, what you're tracking, how you break down your audiences, and then ultimately what is your effectiveness of your campaign, and what you would repeat and what you would refine and change going forward. So if we just go into these steps one at a time, if you look at the data insights, this is just giving again some of the data that we will pull as one of the agencies looking at this area is understanding, how do you reach these audiences, on what platforms. Here specifically, we looked at Kenya, Nigeria, and Indonesia. Again, massively driven by social media, but again, you can reach them in different ways. Again, if you're looking at younger audiences, again, which platforms are they using, what time of day, how frequently do they use it, how long do they spend on these platforms, when's the best time to reach them with this type of message. If they're in the morning, if you're looking at habitual times where people might go to work, again, where they've got downtime, where they might be traveling, those are areas where you might get at the beginning of or the end of a day for an hour or 2 hours if they're traveling, or where they have downtime is probably one good way to reach them. But again, you need to understand that would have to be probably a mobile in most markets today. So again, just understanding like the regional viewing habits in the different markets. Again, as it says here, in these markets it's 4 hours a day. But again, what are the optimal times when you can reach people with the message that you want to try and get through to them? and again, different areas just in terms of which countries that you might want to address. So again, you do your market by market research. Again, look at how you might look at broadcast, radio, other methods that might support that, but it definitely needs to be a digital first approach to get to the messaging, which is more targeted than it would be with a broadcast, and address the full media mix. In terms of other data insights, so here's just 3 particular markets that we've looked at. So again, quantitative data we've touched upon, basically looks at the data we get from the client. So if you're working with CREST or other partners, again, it's just how do you understand the research and the market data you get? How do you then start to look at all of the sort of consumption data of people on social or online platforms to understand exactly how you then target them? And again, understanding these will allow you to build a far better plan in terms of how you might be addressing the different issues that may be looking at how people's views are to cybercrime and some of the areas and some of the issues that we have to overcome when we're targeting people with the banking prospect. So again, if we just took Pakistan, for example, again, looking at global safety index here, that ranked 82nd out of 94. So again, it's one of the most vulnerable countries in the world for cyber attacks. So again, look, it's probably something that needs to be addressed. So again, understanding where that is coming from, what sort of levels of profiling, fake profiling, etc., hacking is going on in these marketplaces, the attitudes and reaction to that, data protection. All of these issues need to be understood in terms of how you compile your data analysis before you address the campaign. But ultimately, once you know that and you understand the data and the target markets and who you need to address, then you're able to effectively form a far better communication plan together with the tone of voice and the key messaging that you need to make. So going on to the awareness campaign. Again, 3 steps to this in terms of how you would approach it. And again, I think a lot of this analysis is done in terms of how you try and cut through the noise that is out in the marketplace at the moment. So again, the key thing is create an overarching message. So sometimes a single slogan that's easily understood, easily adopted. Definitely, if you're using local languages, again, sometimes you can adapt maybe your global campaign and make that much more relevant by giving that local context in terms of how it would be said in a particular marketplace. So again, it does make campaigns a little bit more complex, but ultimately the key message and your overarching message and the slogan that hopefully could be carried globally is your ideal. But sometimes you maybe for certain languages have to adapt that. But again, the overarching message, again, short slogans, campaign marketing, again, disruptive methods are far better to cut through campaigns. Otherwise, you're competing against other campaigns that might be around key periods of time, again, which you need to understand, making sure that you're not going out when there's a big election campaign going on or other sort of big events that might be sporting or cultural or music, to make sure that you find the right time when there's probably less noise and that you are going to get better cut through. And sometimes using regional influencers, those people that, again, can convey your message to spread that sort of security messaging around cybercrime that people will listen to is an important piece to make sure that you have some visibility and some authenticity from somebody that they trust. And then again, you're developing in phase 3 here, whilst you've got a global campaign and a messaging that you might start in number 1 and number 2 in the steps here, then you start to look at how you would regionalize that. So specifically, if we were looking at the countries we just mentioned before, you would definitely need to tailor to Pakistan or to Kenya, just to make sure that local culture, even if in the colours that you might choose in terms of your campaign, just to make it more relevant contextually to that marketplace, need to be taken into consideration. And then here, in terms of we go into each of these areas, so we're just going to go into these 3. So in terms of the overarching messaging, again, everything here is in simple steps. So again, looking at how you build a memorable slogan. Again, these 3 things are sort of tried and tested. So for us, it has to be short, snappy, can be run in a tagline or in a hashtag, something that's easy for people to link on, to click on, to follow, to talk about, to share. So again, number 1 is make it simple and memorable, but it has to be short and snappy. 2, wherever possible, use icons, people that can convey your message, that have relevance and context and authenticity with your audience. And thirdly, again, is adapt it. to each of your regions. Again, you can do that with language or colour or culture or music, just to bring that localization to life. And here's just some examples that we picked up in the last couple of years that people have sort of built sort of public campaigns that are focusing on similar type of issues where they need to get really key messages across. But again, these are short, sharp. Again, in terms of the one on the top left here, kick it out. Mainly the thing there is that's the key one. They have some other messages here in terms of we are together, we love football, we don't hate. Again, but the kick it out campaign has been very successful. Again, if you look at stay at home, the NHS during the pandemic, again, the key messaging there is short, simple, using bright colours. Very, very simple in terms of how you make sure that the messaging is clear and it's short, people understand it, and it's well conveyed. And so part educational, part having some call to action that's easily understood. And here's a campaign that was done by us very, very differently in the sports market, just as an example of how you do things differently in trying to address an audience. Again, this was around the ICC Cricket World Cup. Again, we just wanted to get some key messaging around launching the project, and this was really making sure that we chose somebody. And here, Carlos Brathwaite is the player that plays for West Indies. He won the West Indies Cricket World Cup in previous iterations, and he again is just embodies everything about and people. If you've don't think you can achieve anything, you think that you want to make sure that you follow someone's personal journey in terms of how he's overcome adversity, how he's now performing on a global stage. And we did this by changing the messaging by going to almost to write a poem about his journey and the fact that everyone can dream big, everyone has an opportunity, everyone has a chance. So it reached much more so emotional engagement here, but we did it by creating a poem written by Casey Bailey and performed by Carlos about him and his journey and his life, but again how it appeals to a much wider audience. Again, very, very successful way in terms of how you use and influence a simple message, but changing up rather than just doing a normal traditional advertising campaign, doing something here with a poet, actually releasing something that is meaningful and delivered very emotionally by Carlos when he delivered the campaign. And in terms of how you activate campaigns, again, we've just picked a number of different influences here from some of the markets where you've got, again, certain territories where we were looking at Pakistan, for example. So again, you may pick people who are in public life, you may pick people who are in music or cultural leaders or people who are standing for good causes. All these people will help you cut through and almost endorse your message. So again, choosing the right people. Again, it's all driven by data. Some of these people would potentially seem obvious, but again, if you run the data, you will probably find people that you would never have identified. But using data tools, searching people across all these digital and social platforms globally will pull new people into the marketplace that you will find that are far better to communicate your message, and they might be micro influencers in certain territories, but they will give you far better cut through if you're trying to address a local audience. And then there are other ways of doing things, again, using digital campaign, but big moments, big impact. So again, you can do urban projections. Again, this is where you might set a time where you want to do a campaign and you announce that as part of your launch strategy and some of your campaign marketing that they should look out for a big monument that was going to be lit up at a certain time. You can do things where you can capture images or make a statement or do a disruption in the night sky and get these messages across. But again, there's just good ways to almost create big impact moments. Again, just to get the audience and get good PR to then support your campaign that will launch at the same time on these digital platforms. And again, here's just a couple of examples of things that have been done. NHS up here on the top right hand side, also top left hand side. In the UK, people have been using here where they've used different artists to promote album launches, again on the Arc de Triomphe. But these are very, very different ways of almost creating an impact that can be done quite cost efficiently become part of your campaign. Again, mobile projection, again, these are just simple methods that you might do if you want to take it out to more places and make it more mobile. You can do a tour with these again, but again, just simple ways of getting your message across, but doing things differently so you stand out. It's a bit more like trying to be a disruptor so that you do get heard. And with these types of topics around financial awareness and financial security and getting into banking, these methods are going to be eye-catching, as well as how you then promote these on these social and digital platforms. Definitely a cut through, because it's different than what you would see on a normal feed or a normal communication in today's market. And again, the power of community, again, as we say, larger influencers, macro influencers, then you do localized influences about how you bespoke your message and get more and more people to follow and become part of the community to talk about the topic, and in this case is all around the sort of financial services. Again, just here, again, different audiences in different places. So again, working with an agency, either like ourselves or others, you should be able to identify all of the different creators, whether they be educational or entertainment-led or political or cause-related. All these people, depending on the message you're trying to convey, you can use these to bring in different audiences to the message, because again, these will be people that are followed by those people who probably don't have access to banking but do have access to social digital media, or do that through their friend network in their local territories. Again, here, cybersecurity, people who are big in these spaces, grassroots influencers, people who've done startups, people who are tech in action. So again, all these people should be considered when you're trying to almost build your portfolio of influencers and understanding which demographic audiences you're trying to reach. It's been done very successfully, again, here in a sports scenario for Hope United, again, which is a team of leading athletes trying to tackle online hate and social media issues. Again, very, very good cut through, using people like Rio Ferdinand and Rashford and so on, for example. So again, all done in conjunction with a number of different key partners, and in this case, BT came and supported this on a sort of national basis. So again, good to get similar sort of approaches you can take with influencers if you're going to put out a similar type of campaign around sort of cyber messaging. Again, just giving you the sense of how you might go about that. Clear messaging, as we talked about, community feel, local influencers delivering the messages, supporting the campaign to give you a clear standout and call to action. And again, here's another one, which is again a TikTok case study. So this was a Be Cyber Smart campaign. It was viewed by over 13 million times by different unique users. So again, using TikTok newsroom, producing articles, talking about scam awareness, how to protect yourself, information where you should go, relevant authorities. So again, these are again examples of where these modern day technology platforms and TikTok's more of a sort of content platform than it is a social platform now. It's much more about the creators and content itself. So again, these are sort of probably more relevant platforms today than maybe Facebook and other platforms have been in the past. And again, how you amplify that here, again, just some of the other areas that, again, you can see where people have just used different types of clear messaging. Again, you can see only you, things around STEM. So again, just using different icons. So here in this case is using Smokey Bear for the one in the middle here, partnering with sort of forestry organisations, but again, they're using a character rather than an influencer, just as impactful and effective when you're trying to address some of the issues around sort of wildfire causes and so on for the campaigns that they were focusing on in their different periods of time. And then regional planning, as we mentioned before, again, 3-step approach, create the right type of assets and the design tools, making sure that you adapt it per region. So again, creating the local nuances that are relevant for the target market that you're going to in a particular country, and then making sure you've got the bespoke performance to deliver the maximum reach when you start to do delivery. So again, the delivery may be slightly different market by market and the time that you run it. And we would say that anything that you do when you're using the social and digital platforms with any regions is to make sure that you get very, very cost effective brand awareness and high level recall. into your audiences. So again, 3-step approach to this again is look at performance marketing. It's almost like an agile funnel marketing process. So it's building awareness, getting people to consider what you're talking about, and then converting them and getting them to do some call to action to either join a community or to register or to sign up or to get some more information, whether it be an email or a mobile details or an area that they might want to go to for a QR code. So there's lots of different ways in terms of how you might be able to develop that. Secondly is about the marketing strategy. So again, local languages we've talked about. Again, whether you're using Instagram, Facebook here, just shows you the cost effectiveness of each of these platforms in Pakistan. And then again, if you're finding people, again, it's all about remarketing. So again, targeting the audiences, remarketing to ensure, I mean, sometimes they won't get recall on the first message. So sometimes you have to look at doing that on 2 or 3 occasions to make sure that on the second or third message, then they are more likely to be receptive to your call to action if they have seen it on previous occasions. So again, retargeting is very, very important. And here's a media plan that we just pulled together for Pakistan, for example. So again, just looking at the digital media in Pakistan's massively on the rise. Internet adoption now is at 35%. Most of the population, again, are still very youthful in these types of markets. In this case here, though, it shows it's very male dominant. 73% are male, and again, it says over. When you're looking at banking or financial services, it shows that 90% of people are also male. But again, just looking at the market size here, you can start to determine which of the types of platforms that you would want to use, who you would reach in terms of the population size, what's growing, and what's better to use in terms of urban areas. So here you'd find a mix in terms of your media plan about which platforms you might use to effectively build your campaign and start to look at how you might do media buying and planning in terms of how you execute in Pakistan. Same here for Ethiopia. So again, market size, only 25% internet adoption here. But again, online payment systems, banking systems are now adopted by nearly 12%. So again, there is some slow increase. But again, mobile, as you can see here, is probably, you would do most things through mobile, making your campaigns mobile centric. You'd reach nearly 50% of the population through that particular platform. It's far more effective than using television or any of the other outdoor campaigns. So again, those, I think, mobile campaigns and using that platform is the best way to reach an audience in this particular territory. Regional differences, again, just understanding, again, here if we just pick on Kenya, TikTok popularity, like 61% of internet users are now using TikTok. So it's a very, very popular platform. It's well received in the marketplace. Again, as it is a content platform, it's a creator-led platform. Everything is relevant to the community itself. So there's a lot more local context and adoption by people now using this platform. So again, looking at how you might use that, you'd still use social media and TikTok in campaigns, but you may use a TikTok creator in a TV campaign. So again, you're bringing an audience from one platform where they are probably being seen on a daily basis, but now bringing them into a mainstream in sort of TV ads to make sure that that's relevant, or putting it on radio platforms, again, just to make sure that you're taking the key influencer and putting them on the right platforms. And then timeline, again, most times we would suggest that we run this over a 3 months campaign. So again, it will take a month of planning, setting all of the KPIs, your research deliverables, doing proper research and building your campaign over the second month. So again, full campaign creation. If you're doing things globally, creating everything centrally, all the assets, all the ideation, all the design, all the tone of voice, the community, the planning, the media buying, making sure you got the influencer partnerships in place, setting everything up in terms of how you would go about delivering. And then your third month is a full month of delivery to make sure that that's delivered globally and local, market by market, refining that and delivering it on a day-by-day basis to refine what works, stop the things that don't work so well, and continue to do the things that do. And then again, at the end of the month, that 3 month period, you can either again extend the campaign and roll it out. I think the key here is about getting sustainability and building a community that lasts beyond the initial campaign. So again, you would probably need to stimulate that probably every quarter, but again, you are starting to build a community that people can constantly go to at all times. And the last bit is obviously the financial consideration is building a budget. And for example, here we just built the cost examples for Pakistan, for example. So low, medium, and high campaign numbers you can see here for 3 months. And then if you were then doing a monthly rollout to continue that, but again, we would say you should roll this out for a minimum of 12 months to build a community over a 12-month period, and hopefully it's sustained a lot longer than that. But that just gives you an example of how much it might cost, and again, how you might use the different mix of media that we've used here: digital projections, influencers, and paid media. And then this is the type of forecast impressions and reach in millions that you would aim to achieve. So everything from 142 million here in terms of forecast impressions up to 284. You can see the difference in cost, and you can work that out on a cost per impression. So again, there may be different KPIs and budget planning that you would need to do, but this will just give you a good indication. Similarly here, we did another one for Pakistan. So again, you can see market by market what these costs are. And that really just gives you just hopefully a good indication of the budget, the planning, the process you'd go through, how you use data, how you build these campaigns through simple steps at every stage that we've taken through in this document. And again, at the end here are just some digital marketing services that come from our company. So Engage. Again, we have a sort of a 6-part wheel. Just a very simple process. Same thing that you've seen in the presentation. Everything's driven by data analytics. You create your strategy, you find your audiences, you create your content, and then we technically deliver those, and then you report and keep iterating the process. So again, having all that skill set in-house in one agency is the way that we add a lot of value to our clients, and we operate both in European markets, across APAC, and Australia and the US. So again, we're a fairly global business, but again, you can work with agencies either globally or locally to support your business case in every case. And again, here we've just shown you some other examples on how you do market research, different types of awareness campaigns that might work, different types of creative that again you have to adapt market by market. Again, execution, it's all about community management and delivery, keeping that community alive, and reporting, having all the data analytics tools to track absolutely everything as your campaign is going on day to day. And this is a live tracker to make sure that you can see exactly what's working, how you adapt, how you change. So having data at the top and beginning and end of everything you do is the most important thing when you're delivering campaigns into the marketplace today. And that brings me to conclusion of our presentation in terms of how you would build a best practice approach to targeting audiences to deliver the message across cybersecurity awareness. And you can go to the links here for both CREST and Engage, and also join the podcast that was done by both Ian Glover and myself, which will hopefully give you a little bit more insight into the conversations we had around this particular topic. Thank you for listening, and hope to hear from any of you at any of the links in the near future. Thank you.